And we are rolling.
Up a little bit though.
We are recording.
Okay, with that, we'll call this regularly scheduled road committee meeting to order. It's for the 6th of October. And let's see, for roll call, we have myself, Chief Shanahan, Pete LaRue, Mike Springer. We're waiting for Todd, correct? I lost my picture, so I don't know who we got there.
Yeah,
Everybody, Todd's not on the road committee, is he?
I guess he's not, huh? Okay, never mind.
Usual suspects.
Okay, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Was that Pete?
Pardon me?
Was that Pete made the motion, seconded by Mike?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye. Do we,
Mike?
I don't know if you need a roll call for this video.
No, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, Dan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's 4-0. And previous meeting minutes for, it's way back for August the 1st. Anybody?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from August the 5th.
All right, Mike. Second.
Second, Shanahan.
Okay, that's a motion to approve the minutes from August the 1st. And Mike?
August the 5th, yes.
That's the 5th? Okay. Dan?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes 4-0. Public comment. I haven't heard anything. Has anybody got anything on their screen? Anybody wants to talk?
No.
I have a question, Dave.
Go ahead.
I've received some inquiries regarding public comment or some concerns. Is now the best time to relate those to you, or when would be best?
Now would be the time.
So I've had a conversation with a resident on Brookton, Frances Higgins at
All right.
290 Brookton. This was a few weeks ago. She inquired about the process for the township installing a road sign. I believe she wanted a hidden driveway sign somewhere near the vicinity of her driveway, and she kind of cited some safety concerns, some speed concerns on that stretch. I relayed to her what that process typically is, approval from the township, and then, having funds for the sign, paying for the sign, and then having the road commission install it. But I've never seen that process, from step one all the way to completion. So I just wanted to make you all aware of it.
Well, I think it would have to be recommended by somebody, and then Mr. Kangas would have to take the issue up. Best we could do is recommend it to the manager.
I can get more information. She did want the road meeting information for tonight, which I relayed back to her, but she's not on here, obviously. So
Yeah, she's on a driveway that is that comes up quite a steep hill before it gets to the road. And then the road is a big, wide, sweeping curve.
yeah.
So it's a very short sight distance for her, and then she's coming up a hill to get to the road anyway.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make it known, and maybe I'll reach back out to her and see what other details she might have, or other concerns, or anybody else in the neighborhood as well. And maybe we can discuss that at the next meeting a little further.
Okay, I happen to be her neighbor, and I think it would probably be a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys want to discuss
Coming
it.
out there myself. Mine could just be technique, though. I did also get another comment on Brickyard Road about the county. I believe it's the county did a repair on a culvert that was raised up there a little bit, and they put some asphalt on both sides of it, and it makes quite a speed bump. and you don't know it's coming because there's no markings there. So they're requesting that we get a bump ahead sign on both sides of that road coming towards the bump.
Wouldn't the easier fix be to have the county come out and correct the deficiency?
I don't believe they can. The culvert is raised up probably 4 to 6 inches through the asphalt. We know where it raises the asphalt up. And what they did is they sloped, they went out and did their repair, and their repair was to put some asphalt feathering on both sides. So the bump's still there, and it's not a jarring bump, but it's more like a speed bump.
Is this
So,
north or
Needless to
south?
say, if you hit it about 35 mile an hour, it's quite a launching.
Brickyard North, I assume.
It is, yes, Brickyard, after it makes the turn from the drive going into Myers,
Okay,
about halfway down there. I went out and took a look at it, and it does sneak up on you.
sure. One thing that I thought Ryan might mention, and not that I want to delve into this too much, and perhaps it's a discussion more for the board or the planning commission via the board, but we get lots of requests for properties to be developed in Trowbridge that are currently abutting undeveloped right-of-ways. And there seems to be a cost prohibitive measure involved with getting that done because in most cases, well, in all cases, the developer is required to extend the road and or utility at their cost. And the properties are being marketed. We get lots of calls from real estate agents that we would love to be able to say, yeah, you know, we'd love to have that development, increase the tax base. But there is that kind of hurdle. And so maybe, you know, I know it's discussed in our master plan and it's discussed in our transportation plan, but perhaps there's some kind of way to incentivize or, you know, we have the utility for the most part in place. It's just a matter of extending things. But I think there's still room to develop in Trowbridge as a way to increase the tax base and keep the current density that's involved in Section 16. But we run into that roadblock and we have to tell real estate agents the bold truth, which is that it's very costly. I don't know if there's some kind of special assessment or something, you know, that we could work on in the future, but just as I guess a comment, you know, coming from Ryan and I, we both feel questions along that line, and it's something we discussed last week in the office.
There might be something in Public Works, because I know way back when there used to do an extension of things like that, like infrastructure, and allow them to pay it back over time. There might be something like that, but you'd have to ask Public Works on that.
We still have some customers that are on payment plans like that.
Okay. But I know it gets pretty pricey because I don't know if you allow them to put a driveway in from right off the end of the road. I don't know if you allow that. That'd be a county thing. But I don't know if you'd allow them to take a lateral in off of infrastructure from where it ends up to their property, if they have to extend the mains out to in front of their property.
I think each individual property would have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, because if we allow one parcel to do it, then we have to be prepared to allow the next one to. And if there isn't a next parcel, then maybe it doesn't matter.
Well, I guess that's it. If you've got the first parcel after the dead end and he's basically coming up on the corner of where the highway ends, and for him to come off there with the lateral is one thing, but if the guy next to him down the undeveloped right-of-way wants to do it, now we're talking about running laterals down the actual road right-of-way.
Yeah, and in that case, we would want to extend the main itself.
I think the road commission would be pretty open to working around certain things like that, but we're on a kind of a case-by-case scenario. I mean, they already permit, some driveways for access along those undeveloped right-of-ways. Sometimes pretty long, sometimes past lots that, we're getting asked about for development. There's driveways that extend further. Maybe in one or two examples I can think of off the top of my head, but I think they would be open to talking with us about that. Or
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases, there's the county doesn't care if you run a driveway down there right away, but I think if it gets into something like rental units or something like that, because I know we dealt with that one over on, I can't remember which street it is, right off of Werner. They were, which it never got going, I think, because it got a little cost prohibitive. They were making them put a road.
Do we have a map of this place we're talking about?
Well, no, there's multiple areas that I can think of.
Okay.
And I get, like I said, I wouldn't want to, piecemeal it, and I can understand the case-by-case scenario as a, kind of a Band-Aid approach, but I'm just thinking, we've had all these stormwater issues. The fire department's going to have issues if the road isn't up to a certain spec, because if it's springtime and there's a fire and it's muddy, just because we let somebody do that, there's all kinds of liability out there. I was just thinking, create that cross section that we've worked so hard to maintain and develop with the ditches and everything and the conveyance system, to extend that at some point properly, and then allow those. But I guess you have to have development that's imminent too. So yeah, it's just a discussion that I would like to have in more depth, just so we can have some kind of concrete document that could be distributed, to potential, especially the real estate agents, because the real estate agents are just marketing the property. They don't have a real care or a hoot about how or they go about selling it in some cases. So
Yeah, you're right, Jason, especially in one instance, it might be easy to just let him, he's right next to the road right away where it ends. It might be easy to let this guy tap in and get a driveway in there, and the next guy happens to be going across a ravine. So what do you do with him? So, and his first comment's going to be, well, you let the other guy do it.
yeah, precedent plays a big role here for sure. Anyway, just a quick conversation on that, but something to think about in the future, and something I think, if we are going to increase the tax base, we have available property to do it. Right now we have access issues.
As I recall, we a long time ago decided that the township would keep those accesses for utilities, possible non-motorized pathways. So I think we need to look at this carefully.
And I don't think you're not giving up the right of way because you let a guy put a driveway in there. That's not really the case, but it does create a couple issues, especially if one guy's got a driveway and the guy next to him wants to also develop it, which happens to be on the other side of the guy that just put the driveway in. Now they got a shared driveway. It's easy for those guys to come to those type of developments to come to the conclusion that they own that driveway, which in fact they don't, as long as it's on the right of way. I'm sure you all remember the problems we've had in the past with culverts and replacing driveways and people thinking they own all the way to the road. So anyway.
Then you have the whole adverse possession issue. Yeah, there's lots of things in the mix out there.
Yep. So any more public comment?
Dave, I got a question for you on that culvert on Brickyard Road. Now,
Yeah.
if that culvert is popping up now, what's going to happen in spring when throughout the winter and that, and the frost and that? Is that something that we should maybe they have the road commission look at that. Maybe you're gonna have to dig that down and put a culvert
The
down.
road commission affected the repair that was done to it. The culvert was popping up, and their fix was to feather asphalt in on both sides of the raised portion. So it's now about 6 feet wide in total, and it puts a nice 5-6 inch raise in the road coming along there. I don't know how it's going to fare in the wintertime with the snowplow,
And that's what I was thinking about.
but it's not something we did, and it's the county. They didn't, I don't, as far as I know, they didn't ask us.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting, or it's been requested, that we put some kind of a speed bump sign there so that people know it's coming up, because it is quite a jolt.
All right.
Okay, next thing up is the street lighting review. Ryan, you want to take off on that for a bit?
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of information on both this 2-page list and the map that kind of goes along with it. But I ask, just don't let that, get away from the 4 common themes of the types of streetlights and criteria we're looking at. I guess Pete had a lot of input and suggestions for areas, especially in the Trowbridge area, that could use some love and some TLC. So we kind of put together a list and combed through the list. And I've talked with the engineering technician department over at Marquette Board of Light and Power. We've had a couple virtual meetings and kind of shared our screens a few times. And I basically just handed them off the list, which we had refined. And I asked them for their opinion on what's doable, maybe a timeline, some cost. And they got back to us, and basically you can break this down into 4 pieces. Hopefully you guys can see the screen I'm sharing. The big one is streetlights to trim, areas to trim, which obviously this list can be expanded upon or taken away. The BLP can coordinate with us to do some trimming around streetlight areas free of charge. We've played around with the idea, and they've asked us to maybe assist with some brush hauling or clearing as they go around and do that. One of the big things I found out was that you need special certification or licensing to clear right-of-ways around the power lines, which the BLP has the capability of doing, but they also subcontract it out. So, some trimming could be done this winter within the next 6 months if we coordinate and talk through that with the BLP. Second area and suggestions were to possibly update streetlights from the old HPS, the high sodium pressure vapor type light, to the newer LED. And they will replace those at a streetlight's end of life. Once they burn out, they will replace them to LED free of charge. If we insisted on having them replaced prior to the end of life, it would be $105 per change out. So there are 9 there that were suggested. I just put a rough, total cost to update those 9 at $105 a piece. The third part would be to add streetlights to already existing light poles. And there's a lot of already existing light poles that don't have streetlights on them already, between the platted blocks at intersections. So there's 12 listed there. The only charge for that would be the additional $13.25 charge per month to the bill. So if you take a look at the total cost, per month for 12 lights, $159, just do the quick calculation there. And again, there's more locations and areas to be expanded upon or taken away from all of these on the list. And lastly, there are some suggestions to add streetlights to areas that didn't already have existing poles, and that's where it starts getting a bit pricier, and the range kind of fluctuates, and gets bigger. A new light installation with pole costs anywhere between $600 to $800 for the standard wooden poles. And then you're going to be adding the new light monthly service charge on top of that. One of the suggestions, which I didn't realize or think about this before talking to the BLP, for example, Commerce and Cornerstone Drive, it's all underground lighting. There's transformers underground, and the poles that they would put up there are more expensive. They're fiberglass poles, and they're more expensive than would be the typical wooden pole. And if there's not already a light there, you're going to have to be paying for the installation of well, maybe not the installation, but at least the trenching for a transformer underground. And that just adds to the cost even more.
Ryan, what's the life of them street lights? Did he say?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Some are pretty darn old, I know that.
I mean, you see some of those HPS bulbs, the older ones that are still going. They've been there for a long time. I don't know how many years, but they've been there for a long time. They're still going. We're, I guess just waiting for the end of life to come to be replaced. I don't know what the typical street light lifespan is.
Because some of the problem is they have the older light, and then they have the older shield. That's like a dome right over it, rounded on both sides. And the newer ones are straight LEDs. So
Right. Yeah, they're flush.
been there.
Yeah, and a few other good points too. There's a number of street lights that are currently on poles, but they're facing a parking lot or an area that doesn't really make sense for street light safety or visibility concerns. And they can go and turn those lights free of charge as well. I know there's at least one on Brookton. There's a couple near the Public Works building that would make sense if we turn them and put them, hovering over the streets themselves. So I guess just take a look through these suggestions, this list. I have an accompanying map, which I hope makes sense as far as the lights to trim, where all the lights are located on the suggestion list. I don't know what type of, where the road committee wants to go with this, but there's options to work with the BLP and definitely whether that's trim or add lights to existing poles. See what we can do in the next few years or next 10, 12 months to the next couple of years. Definitely get some momentum going on it. Absolutely. They're busy, the BLP is. So I think the sooner we get in with them as far as coordinating efforts to better the streetlights, the better. But these are just suggestions and kind of some scenarios that we are looking at to make that happen.
Ryan, I think a good start would be get that trimming, if they could put the issue of that, put that on the top of their list, because that would help the lighting in the streets, because a lot of the lights are covered by branches and stuff like that, and that'll improve the lighting.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we might be able to speed that process up if grounds department and maybe some help from Public Works is able to assist them with brush removal too. That's something that they recommended or brought up as a possibility. I brought it up to John real briefly here today to see if that's a possibility too. So it's just a matter of coordinating that with time, location, and the staff that we have along with the staff that they have. So I think that's a very doable option as far as trimming up around the streetlights, especially in the Trowbridge area, Brookton area.
Why is it they will not clean up their own brush?
They can clean up their own brush, I suppose, but I guess it's just going to cost them more time, ultimately more money, I'm sure, on their end. I believe we're part of a regular scheduled maintenance right away, power line maintenance trim up, clean up, but that's only every few years, every 6 years, I think, on the schedule. They put the number, the year 2023 as the next more comprehensive project to come clearing around the township. So getting them to do that before then in some select spots might take some effort on our part to help them do that.
Well, if we're only getting half of the lighting in it, we should only pay half the cost. Now, that's kind of a simple thing to say, but I mean,
Yeah, well,
it's the truth, because some of them, if you ride around at night, you'll just see it, they just shine into the leaves and not into the branches and not even down. So,
yeah, I asked them what's the deal with the road commission when they trim up the right of ways. And they made the point of, well, they can only get so close to the power lines themselves too, which was a good point, but I think that's a valid point you got there too, Pete.
Well, I would think this needs to go together to a recommendation to the manager, because it does become a budget issue, and it certainly becomes an issue with the ability of his personnel to go out and pick up brush if that's what they need to do to make that first part happen. But I would think we'd put this together in an order of priority. And I would think the first thing we'd want to get done is get the street lights trimmed and get some of these other things done down in the other notes, because those are at no cost. So we're looking at some labor to pick up the brush. But then when you get down to updating the street lights to LEDs, I've got 4 street lights, security lights on my property that BLP owns. And as the bulbs burn out, they were changing them to LED. So it's not a matter of when the fixture wears out. It's a matter of when they have to replace the bulbs, they were switching them over to LEDs. But they lasted me 20 years at least.
oh my God, you can't wait that long.
But they just started that process of replacing the whole fixture when they have to replace the bulbs. And when I called them, they said they didn't have any more of the regular bulbs to replace. They're just changing the fixtures out.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, hire a little kid with a BB gun, go fix them up. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been wanting to ask this question since we started talking about LEDs and mercury vapor. Is there a cost saving either in energy, and hopefully that reflects that in our Board of Light and Power bill with going with LEDs? Because even though we have a few that they would change out, as I recall, at a minimum cost, it might be a cost savings down the line.
It was the same cost for me, that nothing changed.
There's supposed to be a LED save.
Yeah, I'm sure it's saving the BLP money, but they don't pass any of that on to the user.
Zing.
But when you get down to the new light installations, the $600 to $800 light cost, I mean, that's, and you got to remember too, if you want to add the lights where there's an existing pole, we went through that a couple of years ago and we had to take a number of them back down. So I think the only way to get that done, is a lot of those dead ends, is the people don't want it there. So you got to have a policy in place that you're going to enforce, or are we just going to take them down if the people call up and say they don't want them there?
There's a policy there that we have to contact the person if they don't want it. Apparently they don't put them in on dead ends.
And then I wonder if there's any grant dollars out there for the more costlier items, the additional street lights at the $600 to $800 cost.
Everybody's quiet on that.
I mean, I don't know this,
Look
but
up options for that kind of thing. There might be something.
We'll look into that. We're taking notes.
okay. Yeah, I would just think if you want to make a recommendation, maybe we should put something together for the next time for the November meeting, and we can send a recommendation to the manager and he can deal with it through the board. That's the way it's supposed to go.
I'm wondering if this can be fine-tuned a little bit further. Have you, and Ryan's been working on this, I haven't taken a deep dive into this, but I'm curious as to whether, the way that we did the road repairs and maintenance was based on a matrix of certain characteristics of that road. I'm wondering if the lighting is done in the same way.
I believe we have other layers to it that we worked on in the past. One would be like a transportation drop off or pickup spot.
I
The
think
other
we
one
could
was
use those same factors, Mike, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, all those can be put together in one map, I would
So
believe.
we're saying Pete needs to do some more work on this?
Well, I think some of the work's been done in the past.
I think it's just a matter now of what you're saying, adding additional,
You could add the complete streets layer, you could add the bus route layer, you can add the primary routes perhaps that the fire department utilizes. And then you could establish a priority to where those lights should be, where they're not where they should be.
okay, yeah, I guess I was going off of what's in the streetlight ordinance as far as lights in the middle of platted blocks, which you could see a lot of the orange lights here, so adding to existing poles takes care of quite a bit of that, but
And that won't change, Ryan.
yeah,
That won't change, because that's your standard. But just the priority of the installation would, based on the factors of the road or the characteristics of the particular road segment.
well, let me find those layers and then I'll come back with another map and we can do that.
I'll assist you with it.
So we can leave this on the agenda for the November meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the road maintenance for 2021. And I can start out by saying Ryan and I went out and independently did a tour of the RoadSoft recommended roads and the repair that RoadSoft was recommending. And we got comparing our notes after we were done, and it seemed that a lot of what was recommended by RoadSoft was a little overkill, and didn't really see, neither one of us saw where it was necessary. So what we come up with was the list you have in front of you. And most of it, the larger portion of it is crack sealing. There is a section of Brickyard Road between the roundabout and Northwoods Road that would be a candidate for chip seal plus. And then Farner was recommending a rather extensive test section for that GSB 88, which I just not sure we have the budget to do that large of a test section. I think, John, if you remember, our budget was like $62,000 or $63,000.
Yeah, that sounds right. I can probably find it here pretty quick.
Yeah, I think that's pretty close. But if you look at what we've got here, the crack seal is 47, almost 48,000. I guess what I would recommend is that we do the crack sealing and the chip sealing. I don't know if the chip sealing is going to stay that price if that's the only section of chip sealing that we're doing. I don't know if it's going to get more expensive and if they're only coming up here to do that small of an area. And then he gave us a price on that GSB 88, and I don't know, we narrowed it down, or I was recommending that it be narrowed down to a stretch on between US 41 and South Vandenboom on Brookton Road, and a small section on Fair, just so that you could get an idea of how it wears. The price wasn't too bad, but I don't know how well that price is going to hold up either if they're only doing a small area. Because he had proposed a section, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but it was about 5-6 times greater than what's being proposed here.
Yeah. Can I add something real quick before more discussion happens? I think RoadSoft does a really good job of, if you have the right first unit price, the input price in RoadSoft, it does a really good job of estimating what that treatment cost is or would be, but just that treatment cost. So it doesn't really consider the contractor's mobilization or really any of those other factors. And I know last year when I did the RoadSoft report, the RoadSoft estimate was almost half of what came back and what Farner bid out. So I went in there and I kind of recalibrated some of it. So I think, and I hope, knock on wood, that the road soft estimate, especially for crack seals, is hopefully going to reflect what comes back in the bids more closely. I would probably anticipate the chip seal portion to go up, and that's because last year for the same section, the road soft estimate was 11,500. They came back with 14,700, and we had more chip seal segments on last year's bid as well. So this is 2 fewer road candidates for chip seal. And then the GSB 88, yeah, I think you're exactly right. As far as that will probably jump up significantly as well, because they gave us an estimate for a lot of roads in Trowbridge for maybe like $25,000 to $30,000 worth of work. So now when we're looking at only a couple sections as a test patch, this probably won't factor in the fact that they're going to have to bring up some specialized equipment for just a 600-foot long stretch of road. But yeah, ultimately, I think these are some good candidates. I think the price points are going to be closer estimated than last year, and we'll just have to see what they come back with.
I would suggest that we put together a recommendation that is for the crack seal with an alternative or alternate for the chip seal plus and the GSB 88, so that you can eliminate them if the price gets too far out of line from what we've got. But I think the crack seal will fit well within the budget anyway if we don't get to the rest of it. I do have a question on probably for John. The end of that list of crack seal, they've got some streets in there that we haven't done any work on before, and I questioned Ryan as to whether they were actually county roads or not, and that's Chapel Ridge, that Mako Court, and Everly Way. It's up in Legacy Hills. I just don't know if they're county roads or not. If they're not county roads, they don't apply for the road rehab dollars.
Yeah, so I showed Ryan how to find them on the Act 51 maps, and I'm pretty sure Chapel Ridge is on there. I don't know about Meckel Court and Everly Way, but we can certainly check the Act 51 maps and see if they're on there.
Okay, Ryan, I think you already did that, didn't you?
Yeah, for the last time I talked to both of you, I checked with Pam Skid at the county, and she confirmed that they're both county local roads.
Okay. Then I guess they belong there with everything else.
Pam is definitely kind of one of the ultimate go-tos when it comes to that, because she actually manages those Act 51 maps for the road commission.
Okay, well, I guess it would be my suggestion, if somebody would like to make the motion, or if you got any other questions or discussion, is to recommend this as it's presented to the board for consideration, so we can send it out for bids.
I just have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm in support of what you're asking here, Mr. Wiegand, but and I understand Ryan was talking about, these estimates are most likely going to be higher. And I'm looking at both the chip seal, which is about a half a mile, and I'm looking at the GSB 88, which together add up to a little more than a half a mile, or is about a half a mile. But I'm looking at the price difference. Is there that much difference, and are these things comparable? Is a chip seal comparable to the GSB 88?
No.
So if they're both comparable, and if so, wouldn't we want to lean towards the one that was less expensive? And as far as I recall, more environmentally friendly.
Mike, the GSB 88 is a treatment that's designed to go on a road that's in a little better condition than a chip seal road.
Okay.
And it's intended to make the road last longer before it needs.
Like a surface rejuvenator to help minimize oxidation, something like that.
So that you'll notice the roads the roads they originally recommended this for, and this comes from Farner, was pretty much all roads that were eligible for crack seals or weren't eligible for anything this year, is what they wanted to put this treatment on.
Thank you. That helps.
Okay.
So I am in support of that. Ryan's got something he wants to say.
Good, Ryan.
I was just going to add, when I was speaking with Farner for GSB 88, one of the things that they said was that GSB 88 is best applied on roads that are within 3 to 4 years of being brand new. So as we move farther away from having roads that are completely brand new, probably the less likelihood that GSB 88 would be a good candidate for them. But just something to keep in mind. You know, I don't know how comparable they really are, and I couldn't really get any solid feel for that when I asked other communities downstate or in Wisconsin that used it. But just my 2 cents.
I think we ought to go ahead and get a price on it anyway and see where it compares with everything else, along with the chip seal. I would think both of those are candidates to be left off of the awarded bid if the price goes up significantly, just because it's such a small area that we're asking to do. So anybody want to make a motion?
Why don't you make the motion, Dave, and also second it?
Hey, Dave,
Yeah, go ahead.
quick, how old is Brookton Road and Brickyard? Roughly, if you know.
Brickyard?
Yeah.
Brickyard has taken a beating over several years. It's right there by Best Buy.
Correct.
And there's not a lot of it left, but it's pretty well, it's got a lot of cracks in it, both directions. And I'm not even sure that that's a reasonable candidate for chip seal. It's probably more in a reconstruction, especially the piece from where the roundabout paving ends up past the Best Buy driveway. It's pretty well broken up.
Agreed. And is Brookton too old for the GS?
Brookton is
88?
probably an easy 10 years old anyway, but it's been getting the infrared hot patch on it. So it's
Yeah.
actually in pretty good shape, especially on that end.
Thank you for all you guys. You guys did a lot of work on everything, lighting and streets.
So anyway, I guess the motion would be
I agree.
to present the request for proposal as presented to the board for their, recommended to the board for their approval.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Okay, with that, I'm a yes. Mike
Yes.
and Dan?
Yes.
Pete? Pete?
No, I didn't, I can't vote because I never heard the discussion.
Oh, where you been?
I lost the
Sounds
whole,
out of space.
just the whole discussion.
Oh, okay.
Come on
So
now, and I'll vote
that
yes.
means you're abstained?
I'll trust you.
Okay, so we're 3 and 1 abstaining. So anyway, it passes. What do we got left on our agenda here? We're getting ready for a board meeting.
Brooks,
I'd like to bring up one thing that we keep on the agenda is our drainage problem.
Okay, that usually gets discussed at the board meeting. We're working on that grant, and between the planning commission and the board is usually discussed on an ongoing basis as far as an update where those grants are.
I'm kind of curious how they could fix that.
I don't know, John, maybe you could weigh in on that.
Well, I think there's too many specific drainage issues out there in Trowbridge Park alone, but
Because when the road goes down, there's two different.
what was that, Pete?
I'm thinking we may have lost Pete again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll let that go till we get him back. As far as the reports go for the township board, we've been just working on budgets. We're all the way through public works. We've done general, fire department, and public works. We got a meeting tonight. We had a meeting tonight after this meeting's over. That's why I'm trying to put the bums rush on everybody. So the planning commission, let me get my piece of paper. The planning commission, the September 23rd planning commission. The commission was presented with a FOIA request regarding the Michigan Aerospace Manufacturers Association, and that was also moved to the board. The medical and adult use recreational marijuana is currently scheduled for a public hearing on October the 14th at 7 p.m. And the associated draft recommended board ordinance for that same marijuana issue is scheduled for a final review by the Planning Commission at that same October 14th meeting. From there, it's hoped it'll move on to the board for their consideration. The timeline for that marijuana zoning text amendment is hopefully on October 14th after the public hearing. If there's not a lot of input at that with recommended changes following that meeting, we can move it forward to the board or move it out to review from there. That needs to go out to the county for approximately 30 days for review and comment period. November 11th, the commission should move the zoning text amendment to the board for first and second reading on the 24th of November and the 1st of December. And on either the 24th or the 1st of December, we're hoping we can move the recommended board ordinance to the board for their consideration also. And then we worked on a zoning text amendment to allow for and regulate mobile food trucks, and that was also moved to a public hearing on October the 14th. And that's it for the Planning Commission. Recreation Committee, Mike?
Actually, I think it's unfortunate. Actually, Todd Caruth is a member of this committee. I just looked up past minutes and he's recorded as being there. So we need to list him as a committee member. So I don't have anything to update on the rec committee. Mr. McCarthy or Mr. Diedertsen might have something, but I don't have anything to offer.
Yeah, we're wrapping up tonight on the board agenda. There's, I believe it's on the consent agenda, but there's an invoice to pay Oberstar for the landscape work that was done at Lions Field and Trowbridge Park. That'll be discussed tonight, and hopefully with that approval, we'll be able to submit for final reimbursement on 3 different grants that we've received. Other than that, I'm hoping that we have a rec committee meeting this month, which typically we would. And we'll have more information for you at that meeting or after that meeting.
Okay, with that, we'll move to public comment. I don't see any more of that out there. Any correspondence that needs to be shared? With the silence, I'll say no. Committee member comment. Mike, got anything?
Yeah, I do. Thanks to Mr. McCarthy for signing me up for this MAP, Michigan Association of Planning. I've had the opportunity to look at 2 different presentations already. Some of these are pre-recorded. And this is something that we should think about. How can we make this available to more of our stakeholders, our committee members, our planning commission, our board? Because there's a lot of good information in here. We're talking about stormwater management. One of the things I looked at today was the Huron Metro stormwater management and quality improvement presentation that was made. And there's some interesting concepts in there that we could be using locally. Also, I'm real pleased to let you know that I had the opportunity to look at our Sustainable Built Initiative, Mach A2 with Jason McCarthy, Wayne Bea, Brad Newman, and also Aaron Ferguson. And that's a real interesting presentation. It'd be nice if the planning staff is able to show that or make that available to other people in the future. It's well worth the time to look at some of these. I know that Manager Kangas, or actually Superintendent of, I believe it's Leonard, may have enjoyed this one or appreciated this one and learned something from the stormwater management one that I also looked at today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Pete, you got anything? We lost.
Sorry, I missed.
Okay, Dan?
A lot of good work. Nice working on the maps and street lighting. And I think I personally will, the next meeting, have a recommendation, not for new poles, but where lights could be added for just the monthly charge, and I will prioritize. Good work by everybody who put this together.
Okay, and you're going to submit those to Ryan, right?
I will do that, yes.
Okay. All right. With that, if nobody's got anything else, we're going to adjourn this meeting at 6:21.